Hello, and welcome to Look Ma, No Hands. Sex magic without touching. Okay, so our workshop description for this particular workshop says, who would ever want to do sex magic without touching their partner? That's one of the best parts, right? Touch is good. Touch is important. But touch isn't always the best choice. Perhaps you're uncomfortable with touch. Perhaps you've made agreements with a partner that necessitate a hands-off approach. Or perhaps you're dealing with an illness or condition that cautions against intimate touch. Maybe you just want to explore other ways of raising and heightening sexual energy in order to expand your sex magic vocabulary. This particular workshop is designed as an experiential workshop. And I think that it's important that if you're engaging in any kind of sex magic workshop, that you know that you are always at liberty to set your own limits regarding participation. And that's true here as well, which is probably obvious since we're engaging in this asynchronously and I don't know what you're doing or not doing. We're going to be practicing some techniques of energy manipulation, breath work, eye gazing, etc. Those practices can get very intimate and very intense despite the lack of physical touch. So for this workshop, if you don't already have one, I recommend that you go grab a mirror or an icon or an image that has its eyes open. And if you don't have any of those accessible to you, you can visualize one of those things that may help with one of the exercises. And I have the note here that this is socially distanced sex magic since before it was cool. This is actually a workshop that I led well before the pandemic ever struck. So this isn't just arising out of that kind of space. This is actually a workshop that I've offered a few times at in-person events where participants have the choice to practice with a partner or not. They can practice solo as well. So for us at this particular symposium, though, I'm mostly going to assume that you don't have a partner with you. And if you do, then you have some options that are going to be very exciting for you. But if you don't, then that's perfectly okay because I'm approaching this as a we don't have a partner here with us kind of moment. I recommend trying absolutely everything solo and with that partner if they consent. So you can try these things out on your own first, and then you can take them to a partner, maybe that isn't present while you're watching this. Feel free to pause as needed, though, to try some different things out. So 2 of the exercises don't require any kind of materials aside from your own body. And for the final exercise, though, you're going to want some kind of partner to engage with, and that can be another human in your space. It can be a mirror or an eyes open image or icon that you can work with. And if your powers of visualization are really strong and you don't have any of those things available, you can picture one of those things. All right, so clicking through things, trying to get my screen to work with me. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about what sex magic is versus sacred sex. So we just did an intro. If you're watching these in order, the last video was an introduction to Western sacred sexuality. But this one's really focused more on sex magic. However, as I mentioned there's big overlap. If we draw 2 circles that are the Venn diagram, that vesica piscis, that section in the middle is quite large for sex magic and sacred sexuality. So sex magic is using sexual energy to power a magical working. And that magical working, the point of it may be gnosis, right? It may be enlightenment. It may be connection with that partner, with yourself, with the divine. These are all things that we talked about in the intro to Western sacred sexuality. Whereas sacred sexuality is usually more defined as a sensual or sexual intimacy with a focus on divine connection or spiritual gnosis. There's not necessarily another goal in mind, that it's about connecting with that partner or with yourself, with the universe, with the divine. So I think that it's worthwhile to talk a little bit more in depth about what those reasons for no touch options might be. So you might have a partner in which you engage with sexually. Maybe you even do sex magic together. But exploring some of these techniques might be a way of reigniting or boosting the intimacy or the connection that you're feeling with that current partner. It could also be a way of forming a connection and intimacy with a new partner. All of the techniques that we're going to talk about can be used in that way. You might have, or your partner might have, physical limitations due to a disability, or there may be some physical limitations that you're experiencing because of distance, or there might be other factors that are creating a reason why your physicality with each other is limited in some way. You may be in a place where you need to honor a relationship boundary with a partner. Maybe you have a partner that doesn't perform magic, or that feels uncomfortable with sex magic, even a hands-off sex magic. Or maybe they're just not into magic at all. But maybe you have a monogamous or other closed relationship kind of agreement that you're not engaging in, sex acts, traditional types of sex acts with another partner. Maybe they don't feel threatened by an eye gazing situation, but they do with touch, even if it's not sexual touch. They may still not be comfortable with that. So this is a way to honor those boundaries with your partner as well. You might have some concerns regarding lingering public health issues, and that would be very understandable. Or maybe you have personal health issues that make touch impractical or painful or potentially harmful to yourself or to the partner. Maybe you're just uncomfortable with touch, particularly with a new partner, or maybe in certain sorts of circumstances or situations. And so you need some no touch options to be able to engage in sex magic. Or perhaps you're just interested in exploring some new skills, and adding some techniques to your arsenal. So let's see what we can do with that. So one of the things that I think that it's important for us to talk about is the difference between climax versus orgasm versus ejaculation. So these terms are sometimes used interchangeably by people, but there are some differences. And this comes up with these kinds of techniques and just in sex magic and sacred sexuality in general. So sort of the generally accepted definitions that I'm finding right now from sex professionals, sex therapists, sex counselors, are that orgasm is a buildup of sexual pleasure prior to the peak moment. And that orgasm can be sort of more this rolling experience, this elongated sort of experience. And it can also be less goal-oriented than trying to achieve climax. And that climax would be that peak then of the orgasm. When pleasure is the most intense, it's often described as an explosion or a release. And then ejaculation is the release of sexual fluids that can accompany that climax. So accepting and working from these definitions, it's important to make note of a couple of things. Number one, none of them are strictly required for fulfilling and pleasurable sex or for sex magic or sacred sex, right? You don't have to have an orgasm. You don't have to have climax. You don't have to have an ejaculation in order to have good sex that you find fulfilling, or that does the work of sex magic, or sort of speaks to the aims of sacred sexuality. They're not required. Another thing to note is that human bodies of every gender are capable of experiencing all three of these things. So gender does not really play a role in whether or not you're able to have an orgasm, climax, or ejaculation. And the third point is that individuals experience all three of these things, climax, orgasm, and ejaculation, in a myriad of different ways. So we have variations within our own experience of each of them. And there are differences between my experience and your experience and their experience. So there are differences from person to person and even within the person. And if you think back about your own sexual experience, if you've had sexual experiences, you're going to know that you've had different kinds of orgasms. You've had different experiences of climax. You've had different experiences of ejaculation. So one of our first actual exercise or technique that we're going to do is about energy manipulation. And I encourage you to give yourself a little bit of privacy, and to practice this technique even as you're watching the video. So energy manipulation has to do with bringing an awareness to your energy, to the vital life force that you feel within your hands. That's where we're going to start, is what you feel within your hands. You can hold them about 1 to 3 inches apart. And you can feel from your hands. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do is to hold them also, like I'd like to start here where we're feeling the one hand is feeling the other hand. But I'm going to ask you to sort of roam them over your body. And to keep at that 1 to 3 inches distance above your skin. Wherever you decide to roam, like don't actually touch yourself for this. You're kind of touching your aura in a way. You're touching your energy field. Sorry, and I'm touching my hair because I need to get it out of my face. But I want you to think about what it feels like to touch in this sense and to feel that energy. What are your hands feeling as you do this? But I also want you to alternate your awareness between the sensations of giving this energy to yourself and receiving it, or giving this touch to yourself and receiving it. What does it feel like to touch or not touch in this way? What does this energy manipulation feel like to do? And what does it feel like to be done to you? And as you're doing this, I would also, I'm just showing here because this is what you can see of me on your little version of me on your screen. But roam everywhere, right? You're not touching, you're just above that plane of touching. Visualize or imagine different textures, different temperatures, different pressures coming from your hands. And you can pause between each of these suggestions if you need a little bit of time to dive in and experience. Because my next suggestion is going to be to try it without using your hands. Try manipulating the energy of your body, of the space around your body, just with your attention and intention. There's a quote that I like that says, "Energy flows where attention goes." So put your focus on different parts of your body with just your mind and sort of feel how the energy shifts. You can also experiment with different intentions. Maybe do a pass where the intention is to stimulate, and another pass over your skin where the intention is to soothe or to comfort. And maybe yet another where you're teasing. How do each of those feel? I'm also going to say right here that if you don't already have a journal out, that this would be a good time to take one out and to make some notes. If we were doing this live, if we were all here together, I'd be giving you lots of time to be able to do these things, and then we'd comment on them together. So we're going to move on to our next exercise, which is about breath work. So it's helpful to know, I think, that mouth breathing, like breathing in and out through your mouth, stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which then increases arousal. Some people can have an anxiety response while just mouth breathing. So you might try inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Try it in different ways. So let's just take a couple of moments to work with this mouth breathing, or the sort of circular breathing of in through the nose, out through the mouth. Start slow and go deep with those breaths. In fact, you can play with the speed or with the pace of your breaths, but try to keep it deep and stay aware of your body's response. You may feel pretty quickly, you may feel lightheaded. What we don't want to do is to trigger hyperventilation. So slower is better. Deep is good. I would like for you to play. My apologies if I have not managed to edit out all of my coughing. I've been dealing with a chest cold for the last month and put off filming until the very last possible minute, so that I wasn't coughing through the whole thing, but there's still some coughing. I'd like for you to play with audible exhales. So sighs or moans or ahs. I'll demonstrate. Ah. It might be lower like a moan. Oh. If you find, and I'll be surprised if you don't find, that that's a very pleasurable thing to do, scientifically, part of what's happening in your body there is that you're actually stimulating the vagus nerve, which runs from like your neck down through your torso and your trunk, through and right by your sex organs. There is a very deep bodily connection between the voice and the breath, and sexual desire and sexual energy. I have big theories on the role of the siren song and the sexuality because of that, but we'll circle back to that another time. So try playing with that. Try vocalizing that. And this is a safe space to do that. I can't hear you. And you can close your door or choose a time to work with this when nobody else can hear you either. So even if you are not a moaner during sex, you don't make a lot of vocal noises, try playing with it here and see if it changes anything for you. This may just be something that you reserve for yourself, but it may be something that you bring to partnered sex. There are also several kinds of tantric or yogic breathing techniques that you may find very stimulating. There's lots of ways to work with breath. And I'm just going to describe some of these here and ask that you do maybe some more research, find some examples of them online. I'll give some brief examples, but my breathing is causing me to cough right now, which is not the desired outcome for any of us. So one of those is called the breath of fire, or the stimulating breath. And it is quick inhales and exhales, quick but deep, right? And it's like 3 breaths per second is kind of what you're trying to achieve. So that's going to sound very fast paced, like a panting, but deeper. For example. And it just brings energy into your entire body. There's also the 4-7-8 breath, where we inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, and then release across 8 counts. So we want those counts to be the same kind of count. So you might, want to use something that marks time, like on my screen, you can't see it, but I've got a little second ticker that's letting me know just how long the presentation's going. So I'm going to use that for the 3 or the 4, 7, and 8. That was just one cycle, but you do these for multiple cycles to get the full effect. You can also do a counting breath. Counting breath is you're increasing from sort of 1 beat or 1 second per inhale, and then 1 second per exhale, and then 2 counts for the inhale, 2 counts for the exhale, 3 counts for the next inhale, 3 for the next exhale, 4 in, 4 out, 5 in, 5 out. So again, I'll demonstrate. You really don't want to go beyond 5 because that is more likely to trigger something like a hyperventilation, but and only go as far as you are comfortable, right? That's always the case. Oh, only go as far as you are comfortable. So that might look like the next breath type that I have listed here is chakra breathing. Chakra breathing is on each set of inhales and exhales, and you still kind of want to do those slow and deep. You're going to focus on starting at your root chakra and breathing that breath, that energy into the root, and then exhaling out, and then inhaling up to the sacral chakra, which is below the belly button, below the navel, and then exhaling back down to the root, and then inhaling up to the solar plexus and exhaling back down to the sacral chakra. Inhaling up to the heart and exhaling back down to the solar plexus. Inhaling up to the throat, exhaling down to the heart. Inhaling up to the third eye, exhaling down to the throat. Inhaling up to the crown and exhaling down to the third eye. And then you can work in reverse as well. If you're working with a partner, synchronized breathing and circular breathing can both be used with another person. It's hard to synchronize if there's just one of you. But again, you can use that visualization if you're working with a mirror, with an icon or an image. You can visualize or imagine that other breathing with you or in harmony with you. So synchronized breathing is where you're matching your inhales and exhales to each other. Circular breathing is where you're inhaling as your partner is exhaling, and then vice versa. You're exhaling as they're inhaling, so that you're sharing this circle of breath. Think that there often tends to be a natural eye gazing that happens with this. In my experience, if you're working with another partner, they're in your space. But if you're working with, and this is a fun thing to try, right? If you're working with your eyes closed, you can really draw your attention just to the breath. Or if you're working with more than one person, we tend to take the eye gazing then out of that equation. We tend to break that eye contact and just listen for the breath sounds, or sort of look for those breath indicators in the chest, in the mouth, in the nose. You may find, if you're working with a partner, that sort of who's taking the lead, who's setting the pace may shift back and forth, or maybe one of you tends to lead and the other tends to sort of follow that lead. Those are interesting things to note and to just sort of be aware of. There's nothing to judge about them. They don't mean something necessarily. They're not indicating anything except that they are. So that's something worth taking stock of. All right. So let's move on to our third technique that we're going to talk about today, which is eye gazing. You're going to want to have a partner, a mirror, or an image that you're working with, or very strong visualization techniques, like really good visualization skills. And I know that not everybody has those, and only you can be the judge of whether or not you do. So it might be helpful for you to work with, for instance, a little statue of Aphrodite. I will be very forthcoming. People that have experienced this workshop with me at festival, because I've led this one at Babylon Rising a couple of times. Usually I end up myself, because I'm leading the group, not really working with another human partner that's sitting there. I tend to pick a tree and work with the tree. And I feel like that sounds like one of the weirdest woo-woo kinds of strange occult things that a person might say. It's kind of airy-fairy. It works. Trees have great lungs. Trees, it's very difficult to put into words in any kind of way that makes sense, but it works. And because it works in that capacity, I know that it can work with lots of other different kinds of partners that may or may not be people. It's worth noting that blinking is okay. We're not having a staring competition. It is not they who blinks first loses. That's not what we're about here. We're just trying to look. We're trying to look and see each other, and trying to connect. Looking at each other, gazing into each other's eyes is a very intense and powerful experience. It's so intense that folks like myself who are on the autism spectrum sometimes really have a there's difficulty that people have with eye contact. I could look directly into a person's eyes all day if I'm not speaking. But if I'm speaking, then that vulnerability of me making eye contact with a person while I'm delivering my thoughts can throw me right off track. It's easier for me looking at this camera because it's not blinking back at me. But even then, there are times when, if you watch the videos, you'll see that my focus goes all over the place because my eyes go where I need them to go to sort of like protect myself while I'm thinking through a thought. So what I'm asking us to do here with eye gazing is to be very vulnerable. And it's even very vulnerable when we're doing this with a mirror where it's our eyes looking back at us. And it's also very vulnerable when we're doing this with an image. You know, maybe you have a piece of art with sort of an idealized partner depicted in that art for you. Maybe it's Aphrodite herself. Or maybe you have an image, like an icon, a little statue where her eyes are open and looking directly to the viewer, which is you. And it can feel very intense. So I'd like for you to just sort of take note of what you're feeling as you engage in this exercise. Expressions like facial expressions are also perfectly fine. We're not trying to be statues ourselves. We're not trying to hide something or not give anything away. Authentic expressions, natural expressions. We don't want to be like pulling faces. We don't want to be making faces at the other person. But you know, if if doing this causes you to break out in giggle smiles, then giggle smile. If what you're feeling is, you know, maybe even spurs you toward tears. They could be happy tears. They could be just vulnerable tears. They could be, you know, anything. Just allow yourself to have those expressions. We're not trying to make our faces into stone. It's helpful to set a timer and to stay connected until that timer sounds. So I have found in doing this exercise with people that letting them know how long that time is going to be is helpful. Sometimes when we're just starting, it's good to do like 1 minute, 3 minutes. That time almost always feels longer than it sounds like it's going to feel because we're not used to maintaining that connection through the eyes with another person for that long. So set a timer. And then we're going to have multiple focuses or multiple foci. One is to see the other, to see the beloved. And the other focus is on being seen by the other or by the beloved. So we are both looking to see and we are trying to be seen. And we have different experiences of those things very often. So just stay in touch with yourself while you're undergoing this. So let's actually go ahead and have you turn your attention. I was looking to see if I had one really close and I don't. I'll use the camera. So if you want to do this activity with me, you can. It's going to be hard for me to know when a minute has passed as I'm looking into the camera, but I'll do my best. So first, let's just start with the eye gazing. Just looking, just maintaining that connection. So folks, that was just only about a minute. um, I'm a little blind from the the light ring around my webcam. Um, I'd like for you to take another round, and I'm going to have you just pause the video as you do each thing. That way we don't have lots of minutes of me just staring at the camera, because that's not compelling video. Try communicating an idea or an intention. All right. And then on the next round, try looking from your left eye. And then the next time we go do it, you're going to keep on pause. You're going to look out of your right eye. So kind of bring your focus to that left eye first and look. And then the next round, look from your right eye. And then try communicating or sending, receiving an emotion or sensation to your partner. All right, and coming back together. I hope you paused between each of those. If you didn't, immediately rewind and try these exercises. So I have some recommendations for some other no touch or self touch techniques that you might use in your sex magic practices or in your sacred sexuality practices. One I'm going to call sexual storytelling. And this can be literally telling a story in the third person. It can be written down. It could be something that you're texting to somebody or that you're writing as sort of an erotic story. And it can be in the first person as well, right? So this could be an I did, and that the receiver of the story is the you that it's happening to, or it can be a he, she, they did this, and then this is how the other person or people in the story responded. But this is very much using that verbal connection. And there's a lot of, especially if you bring this into your voice, I've already mentioned that connection of the vagus nerve through your trunk and how it innervates your sex organs as well. So there's some power to like sexy talk and to telling sexy stories. There's a lot of intensity and power there. I would also like to talk with you a little bit about the idea of spirit sex as another potentially no touch or self touch technique. You can always incorporate some other kinds of touching into that, but it really can be a very like hands-off experience to engage in spirit work with a spirit with whom you're connected, a deity with whom you're connected, perhaps. and to engage sexually with them in sort of an astral journey, astral travel, spiritual journey kind of way. I keep indicating the head and then going, nope, it's not really in your head, because you feel it very much in your body, and it can feel very much like this is just happening in an alternative sort of space. So that sex with spirit can be pretty profound. Another variation on that, which is more sort of in your head, happening in that head space, is meditative sex. So going into a meditative state where, again, you're not touching yourself or anybody, or you're only touching yourself, and having seeing but feeling through your body all of the steps in a sex that you're imagining. And then there's energetic sex, which can be solo or partnered experience, in which, again, you're not touching, but you're bringing your awareness to all of the parts of your body. You're breathing. You may incorporate breathing, like breath work and eye gazing into this as well, but you're feeling it on that energetic level. And all of these are capable of, if you don't ever have to be focused on climax or orgasm as a goal, but you may very well experience climax and orgasm as part of these techniques as well. And the last thing that I would mention is that whether you're doing it, like right now, I would like for you to take some time to journal, to sort of debrief with yourself about what you've experienced. And if you do decide to do these with a partner, any of these activities, journal about it, talk with each other about it. Really dig into what came up for you during those experiences, about what that connection felt like, about how it may be different than or similar to sex acts that include touching, sex magic that includes touching. And as always, I'm going to encourage you to share some of that debrief or any of your journal entries that you'd like to share over on the Discord server, so that we can engage together if that's something that you feel interested in. There's a whole channel over there that's just for sex magic and sacred sexuality, and talking about those sort of, and it's age restricted, so it's only open to adults. And that's all I have to say about that for right now. I hope that you got a lot out of this. There's just a wealth of opportunity here for you to explore, and I look forward to hearing what techniques maybe I didn't mention that are working well for you. And I will see you in the next video coming up, which is going to be the Vinalia Rustica ritual, if you're working through these in the order they were designed to be presented in. So I'll see you there.